into account in terms of where language proficiency is for students. One part of my job is actually I have a system-wide study abroad program. We send about 600 students to study abroad. And oftentimes I encounter heritage students, whether they are Spanish-speaking at home or Japanese speaking or Korean, but their proficiency is very, very different. They might speak the language very fluently, perhaps, but there are other skills which Alex's test would need to look into is, are they able to write? Are they able to read? Are they able to comprehend and express? Those are very, very different. So on the flip side, then if I'm having incoming international students, I do have to know how those aspects of this students' proficiency are being tested. You brought up a point, Alex, before of a B2 from India versus a B2 from Mexico. I mean, it would be great to know that those two students have the same proficiency, despite the fact that they come from very culturally different environments, right? So that the baseline is going to be tested, and as long as I can trust that baseline, then I know that this student will be able to perform where they need to be. So that is something that we do pay attention to, and often it's a nuanced thing, right? You can keep a cutoff point, but then you have to kind of look in and around that cutoff point to see where you can admit a student or not.
Yeah. And I think if I may just echo one of the points there, Shankar, is around knowing the tests you're using. Now, there are many admissions departments, dare I say it, and I'm not being critical, but there are, we use this test because we've always used it. We use it because it's a standard we're used to. But, I really would recommend anyone who's working in the environment, what are the sub-skills the test is actually assessing? Look at the rating criteria, look at the real nuts and bolts, because once you understand the individual tasks and what they're trying to extrapolate and assess, then you'll see what it is you're getting. And again, I think often we assume that a test does what it says on the label. And again, I can say this about any test. All I'm saying is dig deep, look really at the skills and ask yourself, what are the sub-skills that we're being assessed in that task? And the other thing really here is around standardization. So again, what is the framework? What is the frame of reference we're using? We've talked about the CEFR, for example, so knowing again how those levels work. So again, the familiarization with the framework, with the tasks is really critical.
Thank you so much. One more piece about the admissions process. I'm wondering, can admissions officers make better use of language assessment or language assessment tools to help them make better informed decisions about student readiness and potential, and to what extent? How?
Well, I'll just chime in a little bit, and I'll let Alex and Shankar extrapolate a little more from their experience. I had opportunity to work in that admissions office, and I fell into that trap too initially that Alex was talking about, just looking for that score and not looking at the readiness of the student. And it was combined because sometimes admissions offices are under pressure. They're trying to bring in numbers of students, and so if they've got that score, you're bringing them in. Well, if you're working with your recruitment channels, or however those recruitment channels may be built, to help with that pipeline of students and where they are, to guide them in the right thing. And if you're approaching this ethically, not to say that you're not approaching it ethically if you don't, but by that I mean with the student's best interest, rather than the institution's best interest. You're going to find that a lot of times they're not that different there. If you're focusing on what's going to be best for the student, are they really right for this? So if you can dig deep into that test, as Alex was talking about, and know how they're able to handle gaps in languages, can they communicate across different skill sets? How do they handle information? Do they work in group environments? That will help inform you in your decisions, and it makes you a better, I guess, a better steward, if you will, in your role as an admissions officer in enrollment management there, because it's ultimately by focusing on what's best for the student, it's going to improve the institution, the quality of what's coming in from the institution as well.
Yeah, we're coming full circle now, Jeff, to our opening about the student-centered approach and elevating student success. So thank you so much for those comments. to give you a scenario here. We've got someone in our audience who's in a situation where there's a monolith of international students from the same cultural background or educational background, wanting to know what strategies they can use institutionally to encourage the value of acquiring, quote, Western academic culture. Your thoughts on that?
So when I was in my teaching economics, especially in my grad program, there was a lot of students that came from India, not just in my program, but also IT and so on. And you know, one way that I admonished them was to say that if you wanted to come and hang out just with your own kind, you could have just stayed home. Why did you spend this much money to come here? That apart, I think it's a serious problem, right? I think we want to make sure and keep in mind that you know the situation can be flipped very easily, in that the assumption that American students are inherently outgoing and will go out and meet these international students and talk to them. That's also not true. So you have to get both of these groups of students to come out of their shell and create these spaces and be able to do that, right? Whether it's in a single classroom or it's within the international office of the university, to be able to create those opportunities. And messaging has to be from everybody, right? So I rely a lot on my personal experience when I'm talking to these incoming students. But the fact that, you know, I often talk about one international student coming and studying in, say, the United States impacts a circle of people around them back in their home country. The same holds true for study abroad. And I think I would talk about it like a factor of 5 or 6 people, because you now dispel all the stereotypes and myths that people have back in their home country about, say, the United States or Americans, right? So assimilating them, creating those spaces, and making that as part of your culture in your institution, that has to be central to what you do. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Students will gravitate towards their comfort zone very easily. They're already in a different environment, so it's a lot easier to do that. I mean, I see that with our study abroad students, right? They all go hang out with other American students. Yeah. So we do have to work on that.
Yeah, Ashok, I appreciate you talking about the cultural aspect of that.